my friends, and welcome to episode 110 of the KISS Army Nation podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Pasquale Veri.
And I am Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
A passionate KISS fan from Sweden, our next guest, along with Johan Falk, published a book called KISS in Sweden, 1976-2013. He also wrote an article on the Coventry for a Swedish KISS Fanzine Destroyer. A few months ago, he attended the opening night of Bliss Street. And on this episode, we will focus on some of his adventures with a former guest of ours, Tony Mann. KISS Army, please welcome Roney Lundell. Welcome, my good friend.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. It's going to be
pleasure to meet you.
It's going to be a blast to be talking about this because I get goosebumps just thinking about what I experienced the last few months. So it's going to be really nice talking about it.
Yeah, and it's been a few months ago and it's still with you, right?
Yeah, it's going to be with me for years and years, I think.
Oh, can't wait to hear all about it.
This is so awesome. I was talking to Pask, when we were preparing the episode, and say we can't wait, to listen to your story. So this is so good, so good to have you. Thank you so much. Ronnie, every story, as we know, has a beginning. And where does your story start? So what was your introduction to the KISS world?
The Elder, specifically the Woven Up Heroes video. I was a Beatles fan, and the Wings and the other guys from the Beatles solo albums. And when John Lennon died, then I understood how important music was to people. I was 10 years old. And then about 1 year later, I saw the video for Woven Up Heroes, and I was totally hooked. There was something about it that, I'm so into this dynamics about the cool guys and the soft music. And then I heard the more heavy stuff, and I was totally hooked. But when I really became a KISS fan was when I saw them live the first time in 1983 on the Lick It Up tour in Stockholm.
On the Lick It Up, okay.
Yeah, then I became a KISS fan, not just a music fan. I became a KISS fan.
All right, and of course, as Pask said in the opening, we're going to touch on your book, an article a little bit later. But what is your personal fascination with history? So I don't know if we should call you a historian, but what about history? Why?
You can call me a historian, I think. I'm very fascinated about the early years, 72, 73, 74. Then my interest fades a little for each year. Maybe 82, 83 is very interesting also, but the early stuff is really interesting because we don't know so much. We only knew what they told us, and the more we get to know from documents and stuff like that, we see that what they have told us is not true all the time. Mm-hmm. Most of the stuff they say is not true. So it's very interesting to dig and see how was it for real in 1973. And that's what I'm really into. How did the band really became a force that we know? How was the roles divided in the beginning? I mean, Peter had a far bigger role than what he gets credit for. And I think the same with Ace. But they don't say so much about it, so right. Listen to people around them.
And as we know, as time goes by, it looks like the history is rewritten, every time. So even when you listen to Paul and Gene, sometimes I don't know if it's on purpose or what, but they tell a different story every time. It's so weird.
Yeah, what suits their agenda at the time, I think.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And nowadays, I think the memories are not the clearest for them, so they say what they want it to be, I think, more than what it was. Yeah.
Though, because, Gene and Paul are businessmen and they need to hype up a product. So in doing so, they basically change history that suits their needs in order to sell their product, right?
Yeah.
So what is your overall opinion and thoughts about this, about how they change history and why they do it?
I'm not happy about it, but at the same time, I respect it and I understand why they do it. But I would rather have the truth, especially about the early years, because it's not important for them anymore. It's not important for how big they are now. They can tell the truth about the beginning. That's not going to affect if someone goes to the show now who buys what's it called, Hello Kitty toilet paper kiss. No,
Yes.
It's not going to affect that. So come clean. Tell us the story. Tell us about how important Sean Delaney was and Billy Coyne and everybody. Be not just mention, oh, he was like a fifth member, but in what way? Be clear about it. I don't think they're going to lose any new fans about it, and they're probably going to make the older fans feel more proud about it, I think.
I think more and more fans are coming out like you with books, articles to basically, set the story straight, especially in the early years. Was that your goal in writing Kiss in Sweden and your article on the Coventry?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we are the only fanzine that comes out full color regularly, and we try to have all original articles. We're not reprints from other magazines or other fanzines. We just publish our own written articles, and we want to be clear about things. We want to say the truth, and it's not always praising Kiss. It's often telling this not objective truth, but the subjective truth from the people who write it, and we're not just praising them all the time. I think that's good because we need to be honest about what's happening in the Kiss world for the real Kiss fans. I mean, paint up the picture for the fans who go to one show on the tour, buy one record once in a while. Yeah, for those you can paint up the picture of being the biggest band in the world that you never was, but who cares? We like the music, we like the show. We don't need them to be bigger than they were. We just like them because of the music and the show they give us, and the myth they give us. And there is in Sweden, they are very vibrant Kiss community. You have two friends of mine, Carl and Alex. They are releasing their fourth Kiss book now this summer. Oh no, it's November. And they are really digging deep. They are interviewing like people who played with Peter Criss in the 80s and 90s and getting the true story from them, what happened with Peter during those dark years in his life. I think, unfortunately, that is never going to come out in English. But it's articles and it's books that tell stories that nobody else has written in other languages. So that's a good. And I would like my article about Coventry to be published in English somewhere. So if anybody has contacts, please contact. I would love it to be available for all to read.
Well, I'm telling you that, Roney, it's Kiss fans who love Kiss story and will be fascinated, to have your stuff translated into English. And actually, just a side comment, when Spinning Gold was released not so long ago. In my case, that I'm fascinated with Kiss story, and I read as many books as I can. To me, more than the movie, I was interested to kind of grasp any single detail of those early days, just to try to come up with a better idea of what it was like at the beginning. Because we hear Gene and Paul over and over again, but having the insight from Joyce or people who are really close to those guys, that's something that it's even with time it becomes more and more important. I think it's fascinating.
I want to jump on that because you're saying that you're watching Solid Gold to get the details of Kisstory, but also that was a different spin on Kisstory as well, right?
Absolutely.
How much of that movie was factual?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and Neil, in just in itself, it's a different it's a different story, within the Kiss story. So yeah, it's true. It is true. It is true. Ronnie, you touched on Sweden, and
Yeah.
uh, we all know that Kiss is so special in Sweden. So why do you believe that this is such an important part of Kiss story? So in other words, why was it important for this story to be told? So you talked about your book, then you're talking about some of your colleagues, writing stuff. Why? Why is that?
If you could read Swedish, you could read about this small book that came out a few years ago. It's a anthology of different writers writing about small subjects, and I wrote just about that, about Kiss loving Sweden and Sweden loving Kiss. And you can basically trace it back to two things. It's the magazine poster. You've probably seen it. Came out in the 70s in Sweden. It was just postage, and even before Kiss broke in Sweden, they had postage of Kiss, and that helped Kiss to break in Sweden. And then you had the first tour they did in 1976 in Europe. They played small places all over Europe, but in Stockholm they played at an amusement park, and they filled it. 15,000 people. It was among the biggest shows they played at that time as a single act, and there was more people at that show than the whole UK tour on that European tour. And that's, I think, made into a myth about how big Kiss was. And it started rolling from that, I think.
And I guess there must be a lot of stories, related to that tour back in '76. Yeah. Could you share some of those stories with us? Do you have something that would like to share with the audience?
I have a funny thing about happening at the show in Stockholm. It was an outdoor show. There's a fixed roof, so they couldn't use their lighting. They couldn't use the sign. And in the front of the stage, it was flowers, tulips. And during one of the songs, Dean went down on his knee and he bit off some of the flowers, spit it out. It was strange. Unfortunately, no photos of that, but there's few witnesses who said, well, he took some flowers in his mouth and spit it out. That's about the thing. Then also they took some photos at the outdoor museum. That's called Skansen. That's also very famous that you can see, and that's just next door to London. And I don't know more stories about that. I'm not sure. Yeah, one thing. When they went after Stockholm, they went to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And after Copenhagen, they were supposed to play in Lund, in a small hall, and they took the ferry from Copenhagen. Just a small ferry, but when they arrived, Ace was gone. They didn't know what Ace was.
Okay.
He got lost on the small boat, so had to find him somewhere on the boat. Typical Ace.
Yeah.
They arrived, and on the way to the show, also the truck with their equipment was involved in a crash, and they barely managed to get stuff to the arena.
Oh wow!
And that was a very small hall. Also, I think about 2,000, 3,000 people. And they played there again on the Asylum tour in that small arena.
Oh, in the same venue. Okay.
Yeah, probably the smallest of the Animal Ice shows on the whole tour, I think.
Wow. And you mentioned before this kind of unique thing of flowers and photos. And speaking of photos, so the book has over 600 photos, and a lot of them seen for the first time ever. So how was the process of acquiring these photos?
Show the book. And that's the front is actually a photo from the Skansen Museum. That's the same day as the show in Roney Lundell. And well, how the photos was acquired? I think it's if you add, it also counting the ads and pages from magazines, stuff like that, it's over 1,000 photos in it. But I think it's 600 photos of real photos, and I think 95% of them were not published before the book, because it's from people's personal collections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from when Johan, who did he is the star of the book. He did almost all the research. He interviewed 100 people. He sat for hundreds of hours in different archives looking at photos and articles. And when he went to the photo archives, he took the photos that was not the ones that was published. Because photographers, they take like 10 photos and they publish 2 of them. And he took the ones that wasn't published. He was looking for those photos, whereas maybe Paul is looking in the wrong direction and things like that to make it unique, because that was a selling point. You haven't seen the photos in this book, period. And Johan, I think he worked for many years with the book, and from the beginning I was supposed to be the editor of the book, but Johan has his qualities and writing is not one of them, so I took over the writing and wrote all the articles except for the reviews. That's a guy called Alex. I rather did that, and it's 10 years since we did it, and now they're coming the last time in a month, so we'll see if we do an updated version of it. That would be cool to have it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we interviewed like 100 people. I think Johan did about 90% of the research, and it's stories about minuscule details up to huge events. It's everything in between.
Wow.
I know what you mean by unique photos. I bought a photo from Len DeLezio. He took pictures of KISS back in 1975, and I have a picture of the band basically on stage, just waiting for the next picture to be taken. You just look at it. You see Ace in the camera going, "Okay, so what's next?" One of my favorite pieces in my collection, because it's so unique. And the same thing for your book. Those photos is what makes the book so special.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those photos, if it was an official book, Paul and Gene would say no to at least 50% of the photos. No, I don't look good in that one. No, that's wrong. And that's one reason that I like books when they're not official, because you get more truth and you get a more unmasked version of it. I think, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So I want to springboard to what Claudia was saying about why it's important to tell this particular story, because it's interesting, that, KISS is, coming to the end of the road, and we don't know what the future holds for KISS. So as a result, I think we tend to look back, right? So any piece of information that we uncover about the KISS, about the band's past, is like gold to us. In a sense, you're providing gold for the fans with your article in the Coventry. So why was it important for you to tell this particular story on the Coventry?
Well, I'm fascinated, like I said, about the early years, and there's no bootleg I've listened more to than the Daisy bootleg. I love it. I can listen to it many times because it's so interesting. It's a band that's still very raw, and you cannot really figure out where are they going. And that's my fascination. And about 2 years ago, I didn't have anything to do in the summer. I was just like looking around at photographs of the early years, and I got a little irritated that there was no photos of the Coventry, of the front of the Coventry.
Yeah.
We had the video, we had the photos of the band and other bands inside, but there were no photos of the outside. So I started looking, and I knew that Ken Sharp had looked a lot for his books about KISS, and he didn't find anything. But I started looking and looking, and after about 2 days, I found that photo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's all over the internet now, but I was the one who found it 2 years ago. And at the time, I didn't think about writing the article. It was 2 years till their 50th anniversary. So I put it out all over the internet because I was thinking it was cool that it was discovered. But then last summer, last spring, I was thinking about maybe in a year, KISS is doing their 50th anniversary, and they started at the Coventry. I need to do something about this. I have the photo. Let's see what I can do with it. And I started contacting people. The first ones I got in contact with that answered were Chris Harlot of the Harlots of the 42nd Street. I got in contact with him. And his manager, Seth Greenkey, who's still a manager for them. And they started asking me my questions, gave me some names of people who worked at the place and some information about how it was at the Coventry. And then the ball started rolling because one guy gave me a name and a name and a name. And it was just a chain of people helping out. And everybody was so happy talking to me, telling me stories, and I could hear the happiness in their voices about talking about this era. A lot of people, it was their best time of their lives. They had so much fun at that 72, 73, 74 at the Coventry and the other places on Manhattan, like Mexico City and Mercer's Art Center and the other places. And then I got really lucky. I wrote the son of Paul Sub, Charlie Sub, Paul Sub was the guy who had the Coventry, and his son has a band called Charlie Sub and the Dogs. And I tried to get in contact with him, and one of his musicians, the keyboard player, answered me and said, well, I can put you in contact with Charlie. What do you want to know? And from then, I was in the family. I could talk to, I spoke to the father once, I spoke to the son many times. And I got so much information. And everybody was so happy helping me out. So, yeah, I got information I could write like 2 or 3 more articles about it. Mm. It was so nice because everybody was so happy talking about it.
Yeah.
But I noticed one thing. It was easy to get people to talk about it when I said it's not going to be about KISS. It's going to be about the place. Then people really opened up because they didn't want to talk about KISS because they didn't know much about KISS, but they knew some things about the Coventry. And that's what I was focusing on.
So is there some nugget of gold that you can provide our listeners about the Coventry?
Yeah, it was dumb. But it was great dumb because, and I didn't understand how people could be so positive about it because everybody was describing it like it was totally dark, it was smelly of beer, it was sticky floor, bad lighting. Everything was, run down. And I couldn't say, why is people so positive about it? And then I think it was Ronnie from Rags who told me New York was a shithole at that time. The whole of New York. That was their everyday life. And the Coventry was not worse than any other place. Everybody lived in that, dump. So it was no different. But it was a place there was only 1 or 2 bands who actually draw some crowds to the Coventry. Luke Dolls was one of them. Otherwise, it was like 40, 50, 60 people was a good crowd.
Okay.
In the weekends, 200-300 was something that some bands managed. But it's one go now it's like, can you guess how many bands played there during those 3 years? From late 72 to mid 73, 5. Give me a guess. How many bands, different bands, do you think play there?
I would say a different band every weekend.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
So, let's
That's
say
about 150.
Let's say, yeah.
150 to 100, yeah.
Yeah.
It's 300 named bands who play there.
Wow.
In the ads. And then you have a lot of ads with plus third act, plus special guests. Right. So I'm guessing it's at least 400 different bands who play there.
Wow.
And that's incredible. I think and it was not just weekend gigs. It was Wednesday till Sunday.
Okay.
Sometimes Tuesdays. KISS played on Tuesday, but that's very rare. It's not mostly not mentioned in the ads. It's like just some. It was totally different bands who played weekdays and weekends also. In weekends, you had the bands that released one record who had some following, like Dolls, the Brats later on, Harlots of the 42nd Street. But in the weekdays, you had the bands who just came in and asked Paul, can we play? Yeah, sure. There's nobody on Wednesday. You want to play? Come. So it was very easy to get to play there. And that's the only place you could play for a bigger crowd than in the bar, playing original music in the whole of New York. In Manhattan, you had to know the Andy Warhol crowd. You had to be hip. Or in other places, you had to play covers. And Coventry, you just came in and play your own music. And that was enough. That was the only place. And people really like to play there.
It's so I'm telling you, Ronnie, I'm mesmerized with all of this. It's like going back in time, and the way you describe it, it's like, oh man, it would have been so great to be there, during those days. Oh my goodness. So,
do you want to know the most strange thing I found out? There was a basement where they had the dressing rooms where the bands could dress up for the show, and they also had some after-show parties downstairs. Mostly, the parties started at the first band played at 9 in the evening, and then 11, and maybe a third set at 1 o'clock. Some nights with 3 sets, and then the party till 4 or 5, and it's coming to close when the last customer left. But in the basement, there was also a guy living there. He was called Louis. And he was supposed to be a really good guitar player, had a huge record collection, and he lived down there. And he was often in fights with the bands because he claimed to live there and they wanted to party. And he was always wearing shorts and some like winter hat on all the time. It was real original. And he was like the janitor and the night guard. And, well, he did everything at Coventry for a few years.
Oh, wow.
It was really strange. He was living downstairs.
Oh, my God.
I never knew that.
No, me neither. Before it was mentioned in an interview, I was like, what?
Wow.
That's really strange.
So, Ronnie, is in some way you stepped into history when you went to New York to attend the opening of Bliss Street, as Pask mentioned in the opening. So, for our listeners who may not know, can you tell us about this play?
Yeah, when I talked to the son of Charlie's when I interviewed him, he said, "Oh, we were working on a musical. It's going to be about my life and my father's life and the Coventry." Okay, so you're working on it, okay. And then the article came out and got some response from that. And then just a few weeks later, he said, on the 27th of April, the musical has a premiere. Do you want to come? I was like, what? I thought it was years way off. Because, I mean, put out musical, you have to buy everything. But it was like, yeah, we're going to do it. Do you want to come? And I said, okay, I'm coming. And I went over to New York, and I saw the premiere on the 27th of April. I was so tired because that was the day I arrived in New York. I'd been up for 21 hours, I think, when this show started. But I saw it again on Sunday. It's about 2 hours long. It's about the New York scene, the family's life in that time, and the father struggles with trying to get the place running and working, and mostly about the son Charlie and his musical adventures and his life. It's a lot of different directions in the play, but it's good music. Charlie and they wrote the text and the music, and together with his Rich Brotman, his keyboard player from the band, they've done the music, and it's really, really good. I think it's a rock and roll musical, but it's closed down on the 20th of May, so it's yeah. But they're looking for, hopefully some other production company is going to pick it up, because this was off Broadway, and that's where you start, and then hopefully you get it moved to some other place. I hope so. It was good. It was good, and music was mostly rock, and it was a great band. It was a live band playing above the stage, behind some semi-opaque fabric, and you could see TV bands sometimes, and it was really good because of live music. It's not recorded; it was live and really good.
Nice. So I guess the intended audience for that kind of play was maybe, I don't know, rock fans, music fans. So who do you think it was intended for?
Musical fans, I think, because it was good music. Yeah, musical fans and fans of the 70s music scene. Right. Because it featured a lot of 70s stories about how it was in 70s New York.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe there's going to be, I think they recorded it, and so it's going to be released in some way, maybe on YouTube or something. And whenever it is, I'm going to send the links to you so you can check it out.
That'd be cool. So at the show, you got to spend some time with Charlie Sub, the owner of the Coventry. Tell us a little bit about him.
No, not Charlie, Paul.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Paul came to the premiere. He's 93 years old this year, so it's he's not young anymore. But he was there for the premiere, and he had a blast. You could see that, and he was commenting things. I sat just in front of him, and Tony Mann was sitting next to him, and you could hear him commenting on things happening. It's like, oh, I was not that big when he commented on the guy who was playing him. He had fun. He had fun. And his wife was also there, Mina Sub. And Charlie Sub was the son. He was playing in the band at the musical. So it was great.
What was Charlie like?
Charlie, super friendly. Paul was also, everybody was super friendly. Charlie let me stay in an apartment, and I got free beer and free food at his bar called Ethel's. It's on the First Avenue in Manhattan. There's also one in Williamsburg. It's a great place. It's a 70s vibe bar. You could totally check it out. This is really cool. And they were super friendly. They helped me a lot when I was there. They just gave me everything I wanted, basically. I could dream of. It was fantastic. And Paul was really friendly also. He was talkative and positive, and he loved the magazine. I had probably written the issue with the article, and he was totally fascinating about it. And some of the information I told him was like, no, that cannot be true. Like the 300 plus bands playing there, but he was cool. It was really cool. Unfortunately, I think it's a pity that KISS doesn't recognize him more than they do.
Yeah, true.
But when they did something on Instagram and on the social media on the 30th of January. They put a photo of KISS with what they thought was Paul Sub, but was Sid Benjamin from the Daisy.
Okay,
that was a pity. I think they could have checked that out a bit better, because Charlie was the guy. gave them the break to play the first live gigs.
Right.
It's interesting, Ronnie, that you mentioned that, how much it's missing, by not praising, those early days. But recently there's been, I think, an interview with Gene, and they asked him a question: if he had to pick one specific moment, in history, which moment could that be? And he said, the early days. So he said, so that tells you how important it is. But it is true. Maybe it doesn't sell that well just to go into the greedy, details. But man, that's the foundation of everything else that came after.
Yeah, it is. It's a foundation. Yeah.
Just being there, meeting Paul, meeting Charlie. You're a part of history. How does that feel?
It was. I did some things during that trip to New York that was still mind-boggling to me. One is meeting Paul Sub. I didn't even know that he was alive. I thought it was passed on years ago because there was no information about it. There was no interviews with him. Basically, there was some small quotes in the Kiss books with Ken Sharp. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought he would have passed on. So I was really happy to meet him and talk to him. And he was so friendly and he was so nice. And on Saturday when I was there, 2 days after the premiere, I met some of the band members from bands like Rags and Brats at the Ethels, and also a guy called Danny who drove the bands to Coventry and back because he had a big truck and he could take their equipment. And Paul came that night and hang with us and talked to the guys about the old times. They were really happy to meet him. It was Barney and Joey from Rags and Mark Pollard from Brats. And they were talking to him and he was talking to them and he was having a good time. And when the rest of the guys left, Paul was still there, talked to me a little, and then he went up to the dance floor and he was dancing with the young girls.
Nice.
And then his caretaker was there with him. She came and said, "It's time to go now, Paul." And he said, "Okay." And they took, and they went. They lived like 2 blocks away, so they walked home. And he had a blast that night. You could see that he was really enjoying himself. Mm-hmm. So that was a blast. And to sit there next to the guy who let Kiss play their first show is unbelievable. It was totally unbelievable. And you could see the other guys also. They were having some fun. Memories just popping up all the time.
Oh my God, man!
And the other guys, like the guys from the Rags and from Brats, they knew the Kiss guys before Kiss became Kiss, and even during the 73, 74, they knew Ace fairly well. So it was nice hearing stories about them playing baseball together. Brats against, what was it, Murder Inc., I think. And Ace was on one of the teams playing baseball.
Oh my God, man! I would have loved to be a fly on the wall there, man. Oh my goodness! Wow! So you mentioned some of the guys that you met that night. That's a surreal experience. So you also you mentioned Tony Mann before. So so what are your thoughts on Tony, our dear friend?
Tony Mann is one of the best named friends I have, because he is the man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, the people who know. He's so super friendly and he knows everybody, like everybody. The first interaction I had with him was over Messenger. I had a photo from the video where he just played on the Coventry, on the last shows from Coventry. There's one guy introducing Kiss, and I didn't know who that was. I asked, what's called Jeff Sue, and he'd say, "I don't know, but I know there's not one on the Kiss crew." Okay, and I asked Charlie Sub, "Do you know who this is?" It's not a guy who worked in our place, so I don't know who he is. He is unknown. And I asked Tony, "Do you know who this is?" "No, but I'm going to meet Lydia soon. I can ask her." "You're going to meet who?" "We got Chris." Yeah, okay. And then he got back to me half an hour. No, she doesn't know who he is. But Bobby McAdams says it's probably Keith West from the Brats. I was like, what, did you meet Bobby also? Yeah, we're hanging out now.
Yeah.
Like, what? And then I asked Keith West, is it you? And he said, no, it's not me. It could be me. I can see the resemblance, but it's not me. I did not introduce Kiss on that night. So it's like, okay. So it's still a mystery. Who is that guy who introduces Kiss at the Coventry?
Wow.
So if somebody know, I would like it. Yeah, and when I spent time with Tony, he was calling people like, well, we can see if this guy, he lives up here. He was working for the KISS fan club in 79 to 81. Maybe he wanted to take a beer with us and talk about KISS. It's like, okay. And he called him, the guy came down, we had a great conversation about the late years of the fan club, and they didn't have anything to send out. It was like, we thought it was super embarrassing to work there because nobody produces any new material, new magazines or fan club magazines. It's like, what I'm going to send, what are we going to send the members? Well, send whatever you have. It's like posters stuff. And so Tony is fantastic. And I'm going to be forever in his debt because he managed to get me into the loft at the 10 East 23rd Street.
Cool.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Tony knows everybody, but he also knows his history. And yeah, like you said, my God, he took you to the holy ground, the loft.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was going through your mind when you first stepped onto that holy ground?
Well, I can tell you a story about how we got in because that's a good story in itself. We went to the building and he said, well, I used to know the janitor from before, but he's not working anymore, but his son is working. He's not letting anybody in, but we'll see. I went in there and the son is working and he has a KISS, Gene Simmons t-shirt on. It's like, okay, we're here to see, want to see the loft. And he's like, I cannot let you in. And there's nobody there, but I cannot let you in through the gate, unfortunately. But Tony was like, even for $20? And he was, well, yeah, I can do that. So he let us,
that's all, huh?
Yeah. So that we got in, but he said, there's nobody at the loft, but you can almost ring on the guy just next door. It used to be a comic store, but now it's a tailor. That's that loft. And we rang on his door and he let us in and he was super friendly. Him and Tony had worked on similar projects before. Tony had worked on Zoolander 1, doing the clothing for that. Mm-hmm. And this guy had done it for Zoolander 2. So they hit it off. So we spent about half an hour there, I think, chatting. And then we went out and he said the same thing. There's nobody there. They're going to renovate this new company moving in. But when we walked past the door, we could hear someone in there. And Tony was directly up the door, knocking on it. The guy opened and said, oh, hello. And Tony was like, we're KISS fans. Can we come in? And he was like, yeah, sure, you can.
Oh, wow.
I heard something about that before, but okay, come in. So we got to spend about 10 minutes in there. It was fantastic. It was totally empty of furniture and everything. They were renovating. They were going to move in a pre-art farms of some sort. And it was cool. It was unreal to be there.
Of course. Oh my goodness.
It's a little different. It's a small room. It's an inner walls that was not there on the photos that you can see from the loft. But those were, I think, put up in the 80s or something. Mm-hmm. But still, it was awesome. It was.
You could feel you could feel the ghosts there.
Yeah, you could feel the ghosts. Yeah, and KISS used to have another rehearsal loft in the same building. I think when they were Wicked Lester, they were on the 4th floor, and they moved down here. But it was in this loft where KISS formed. That was a place where they auditioned Peter twice, auditioned Ace twice. That was fantastic. And they had it for almost a year.
That's a small detail, but that's what I heard. I heard versions of of the fourth floor instead of the second floor? Because the second floor, I guess that's where the comic store used to be, right?
Yeah, the comic store is on the second floor, but it's not the same. It's a loft just
on
next to the
yeah.
KISS loft.
Yeah.
And but they had a loft on fourth floor, and even Tony told me that New York Dolls was there also on the fourth floor in the beginning, and the KISS moved down 2 floors to the second floor and then they moved to Church Street later on.
Right. So besides the loft, Tony also took you to some memorable New York KISS sites. Which one really stood out for you?
Nothing. After I seen the loft,
I can imagine.
Nothing was even close to that experience. That was a holy ground for me.
Yeah.
But we went to the Wicked Lester rehearsal place at Canal Street.
Mott Street,
yeah, close to the Mott Street corner. And then we went to he pointed out the Lafayette, 440 and Lafayette Street, where KISS rehearsed for the London tour. Before they went dress rehearsal, just rehearsed the music. That was kind of cool to see. Mid-Manhattan building. Looked like an ordinary building, and KISS was playing for Love Gun Tour there. It was cool. We went to the address of Academy Music in Palladium also. And I took a really cool photo there because one guy who was hanging with us that day was Andy Duback, if you know who he is. Have you heard him?
Andy, no.
He has the Whiplash Records.
Okay.
Who, since 1974, has released records of bands from the glitter scene. His first single he released was a Brat single in 1974, and he still releases music from that period. Magic Tramp, Corpse Grinders, Rats, DH, a lot of bands from that era. But the thing that makes him history is that he recorded the first KISS bootleg. He recorded the Academy of Music 73 show.
Oh, wow.
So he was responsible for that. And he still had the tape. And he took the tape with him, and we took a photo together when he stood there holding the tape. And I thought that was so cool because that's a tape that's 50 years old, he still has it. We're on this spot where it was recorded. That was cool.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. And he is a super friendly guy. So if you want to listen to music from that era, check out the Whiplash Records. Really nice. So that's about the places we went to, I think. That's what we had time for.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah. Roney, we're kind of wrapping up, and we could be talking, discussing forever, but we spent the majority of this episode, looking back. So if we want to take a look in the future, we don't really know what the future holds for the band, for KISS. In your opinion, what do you believe is the future of KISS after the end of the road?
It all depends on Gene Simmons' health, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think he seems a lot older now than just 1 or 2 years back. He gets signs all the time that he's not in the best shape anymore, like the shows in South America where he had to sit down. And now I saw some photos of show when he didn't have his boots.
That's right.
The whole boots. And I think he depends on his health if they're going to do anything more with makeup and outfits. We know that they're going to do the cruises. It's already booked, but that's going to be without makeup and stuff. So, when is that? January, February?
They said January, but nothing's been announced about that KISS cruise. I'm not sure it's happening.
Okay. Well, we'll see. But there's also talk about Las Vegas. I heard that.
Residency. Yeah.
Because they are talking about this is the end as a touring band. So, and they're not a recording band. So what are we going to see?
Exactly.
I think we're going to see one-off shows here and
there. Okay.
And I hope they're going to start releasing more of the old stuff. Like if the next box is going to be the first album, I hope.
Yeah.
We're going to see a massive box with the full Daisy show remastered and everything, and the Loft rehearsal, the Bell Sound Studio rehearsals, the demo in perfect quality, and the Wicked Lester album in perfect quality. All that I want to see all that in that box, and continue doing that. Release. I mean, there has to be more soundboard recordings from the early years.
Of course. Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
So I hope we're going to see that. But otherwise, I'm not sure that they're going to do that much more shows. Not if you like it's getting older quickly at the time, I think.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah.
And that's sad because I think he was the one who's probably going to do most stuff otherwise if he still had the help.
Yeah.
He wanted to go out with his solo band and play all over the world and do funny stuff, but we'll see.
Yeah. Time will tell. And what about you? What about you, Ronnie? What are your plans for the near future?
I'm thinking about doing something similar as I did with Coventry, but with the Daisy. I want to know more about the Daisy. Yeah. And I may have a contact that's going to put me in contact with the daughter of Sid Benjamin. And he was there, but because KISS used the Daisy as a rehearsal place also. They came there early in the day and they rehearsed in the afternoon before they played in the evening. And the guy I talked to, he was sometimes sitting there when he was 10 years old on the stage looking at KISS playing, and Paul was like patting him on the head, and it was like unreal.
Wow.
So that would be a really cool thing to do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So Ronnie, one final question before we let you go. You know, we usually like to tie everything together and bring it back to the fans. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about the Swedish KISS Army?
Yeah, we are a fan club that released this magazine called Destroyer. That's 50 plus all color pages and all original articles. It comes out 3, maybe 4 times a year. That's what we aim for. And we have, the last issue was number 55. We are just sending 56 to the printers. So it's been around since 96. I think we're getting close to being the longest existing fan club ever. The Japanese, they had one we're closing. We're going past them soon, I think, in terms of existing. So we'll see. But we're looking for writers, but we do it in Swedish, unfortunately, for the American fans. But if someone has something interesting to tell, just send an message. You can write in English and I'll translate it. We have a lot of Americans. Last issue, we had a guy from Brazil who wrote about the tour in 1983 and his experiences there. And we had some guy called Kurt about his 3 shows he saw in 74, 75, and 76.
Nice.
Really cool. Yeah. So it was the first show on the Hot and Hell tour in Thunder Chicken. So I'm super proud of it because it's really good quality magazine. It's a lot of people that get it first time, see it for the first time. It's like, oh, it looks professional, and it's close to it actually. I think it's pretty close to it. And this guy called Marco who's doing the graphics, and he's fantastic doing that. So it's a really good magazine. If you're Swedish.
I don't know, what's the deal with you guys with Sweden, but every single piece of something that was produced by fans in Sweden, it's fantastic. It cannot be compared to anything else.
No, there's not a lot of other material that comes out that's have the same quality. But I think one thing is we usually do it in Swedish because even though most Swedes are good in English, it's still the quality is not going to be the same if you do it in English. So we do it for the Swedish market and unfortunately for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure, Ronnie, to have you on the show. Again, as I said at the beginning, I'm always fascinated with history, the early days, and the fact, that you were here with us, spending your time and what you were doing, what you're going to be doing in the future. It was absolutely amazing. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. And I hope we're going to have the chance to meet. Are you going to New York to the Madison show?
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm going to see them for the last time in Sweden here in a month when they play a place called Dalhalla, which is an old open quarry. So it's a unique arena. It's super cool.
Nice.
But it's also the smallest place they play on this tour. It's only 6,600 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm going to play there twice, 2 days in a row.
Okay. So you're going to see them twice? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
On this, I saw them last summer, Stockholm, Helsinki, and Gothenburg. I thought that was the end, but okay, they come once more, so I'll see them once more.
Fantastic. Well, let's keep in touch. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
I wanna thank Tony Mann for setting up this interview because as we talked about before, he knows everybody, and I'm so glad he knows you and he talked to you about being on our show because we are so glad to have you on the show, and thank you for taking us back in history or back in history with these amazing stories. Like Claudia, I'm just like there. Wow, this is just so interesting to hear. Really, it really was. And when you stepped into the loft, I felt like I was there with you. The way you described that story was just so amazing. And again, these little nuggets of gold that you gave us and our listeners, man, fantastic stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So to the KISS Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Until the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Spotify, Automatic, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to make yourself heard. Leave us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. See you all soon, KISS Army.